The worst thing I ever saw was, and this is a testament to don't try and do things quickly.
Okay.
Uh, Guy on a 30-foot ladder, he decides to run back up it without his stabilizer, and
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Deficit Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Aubrey, and our mission today, as always, is to sustain and stimulate your own attention deficit with stimulating conversations with everything from good chats to life hacks, everything in between. I'm joined today by a friend of mine, Mr. Graham Howe of Howe Sound Music Company and Music Projects. I met him a few years back in the film industry. And I was not very surprised, judging by the hat, to learn that he is a talented musician, trumpet player, and just all-around audio alchemist. Graham?
thanks a
Hello.
lot for having me on, Adam.
Yeah.
This is great, and it's really great to reconnect with you and everything after.
Yeah, you too, man.
Yeah, it's great, super.
So why don't we start with the beginning? Where did you find your love for music?
Well, I mean, just growing up in a musical family that had a big appreciation for music. My dad had a large record collection, very diverse record collection. Jazz, even pop music of the '80s and all that kind of stuff. So, really exposed to a lot. And through that, my older brother was starting to play trombone, and when I was, I was probably 7 years old. My uncles had some trumpets in their closets, so they lent it to me, and I started playing
Cool.
a little bit at home with my brother, and that led to getting into band, in high school and stuff like that, and private lessons. That's kind of where it started, though. But yeah, certainly, uh, growing up in a family that would take us out to symphony concerts
Yeah.
and theater concerts and things like that.
Why don't we touch on that a little
Yeah.
bit? So, like you said, so the first instrument you played was a trumpet, then,
Mhm,
and you just stuck with it. That explains a lot. And who else in your family played those like brass instruments? Or was
My
it?
older brother Kevin, he
Cool.
plays trombone. Yeah, so he
Oh,
started
wicked.
he started playing trombone a little bit before me,
Okay.
and then that we were both really super into music, so I wanted to play something too. So it was kind of
Awesome.
like that brotherly competition thing going on.
Wicked.
But no, we've both of us have played in multiple different bands as a horn section. So like in funk bands and
Nice.
R&B bands and jazz combos and things like that.
Which one of those is your favorite to play like live?
Well, I mean, there's nothing quite like playing in an 8 or 9-piece band, with the amount of energy that especially with everyone being a really tight drummer and all that kind of stuff, horn section, keyboard, that's a lot of fun. The thing is that normally you're not playing your original music, you're playing covers and things like that. Now you may be able to sneak in some of your originals in on that kind of stuff, but yeah, there's a lot. It's a lot of fun when you're with a big powerful band on stage and you got all these great musicians working together to make it cool. So yeah, that's a lot of fun. Although I mean, certainly on the other end of that, I find now that I'm performing my own music, my original music, it's much more gratifying because you're feeling like you're getting some traction.
Yeah.
You're picking up some new fans or some new people that are really interested, and it feels like there's you're getting somewhere further.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of it just the same old cover band every
Cool.
weekend kind of vibe, right? Which is
Yeah.
understandable. But so yeah, that's been a lot of fun doing some solo gigs lately.
Wicked.
Also, having a couple of gigs, as you and Ryan have seen, with the drummer
Yeah,
and
that was
guitarist
a
and Shivani on vocals.
that was a wild
Which
gig,
was
man.
great. That was the
Yeah.
first time we had done that 4-piece thing, and it went really well. So certainly want to find more opportunities to have a budget that will allow the 4-piece to go out more often.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is required, really. But yeah, for I'm sniffing around for some solo gigs coming up in toward the end of January and in February
Cool.
at some local little places, little cafes, little bars, stuff like that. Just to keep that going too.
Yeah.
And then hopefully when some of my other performers got back from where they are, all over the world. They usually come back in kind of springtime, so we try to book some more shows for the four-piece, for the bigger group,
Very cool,
when
man.
that's happening. So, yeah, it's a matter of process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
but I get what you mean when you're talking with the 9-piece band. Is that what you're saying? Like
Yeah.
whenever I've been to a show and they have like a even if it's just like 2 or 3 brass,
Mhm.
it just fills the room so much more. There's so much more meat on the bones with that kind of music.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and there's all these different, tones and timbres,
Yeah, yeah.
blending and really making a wall of sound, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah.
I think that's kind of why I enjoyed ska as much as I did, because like I was a big punk fan growing up, and then when I found like Streetlight Manifesto and like Real Big Fish and stuff like that,
Yeah.
just like you're telling me it's punk music, but there's also horns playing, and I saw them live at the Warp Tour, the last Warp Tour that happened,
Yeah.
and holy shit, man, so cool, so wild, and like just
Yeah.
the vibe that it puts off, having like a big Barry sax, a trumpet, and a
Honking
trombone
away.
going,
Yeah, absolutely.
unreal.
Yeah, and then combine that with heavy guitar and
Yeah, oh
a
yeah.
great drummer and, like, a high motivated,
Yeah.
fast,
And a pace that's just like
totally, but then
going.
punchy horns and everything.
Yeah,
That's just
yeah.
it's a great combination. Yeah, and I love ska too. I mean, I've dabbled in a few ska bands as well,
That's wicked.
which is a lot of fun. They're high energy. You really wear your chops out quick though,
Yeah,
because
I
you're
bet.
playing as loud as you can, and you try to keep up with all the guitar stacks and stuff.
Yeah, I remember seeing this a video of like I think it was a trombone player, but he started like when he was playing his instrument, every time he'd like blow into the instrument, his neck would like inflate. Do you get that at all? Is that
No, no,
because I heard that's a thing that like happens with brass players often.
It can, yeah. Well, famous one being Dizzy Gillespie, the jazz trumpet player who, his cheeks would puff right out, like he'd have these. But
Enormous.
that's not when you're learning trumpet. That's a big no-no,
Really?
because what's happening is you're redirecting the air. You want the air to go straight through and into the
Mhm.
instrument instead of it being. But I mean, it worked for him. I mean, it didn't stop him from hitting those super high notes and playing like that. But yeah, there's some. I mean, I've even seen some other instrumentalists that will.
Yeah, it's
The
wild.
the
It looks
the
like a frog or something. It's
Yeah,
insane.
because they build up so much back pressure, which is kind of required.
Yeah.
It just has to go somewhere. So yeah, luckily I don't inflate like that. When I get really tired,
Yeah.
then my cheeks start to give away,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then the air just starts going out the side of my mouth. It's just, I can't get it down
Yeah.
down the instrument.
Starts going out the
But
blow off valve.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, it's one of those things that all my private teachers would say, no, you don't do that.
Mhm.
It's bad. You'll regret it if you get used to that.
Yeah, brass has always been really interesting to me. Like, do you practice that? I hear that you do like a cyclical breathing with it. How?
It's
Like,
it's harder than I've tried it. I can't do it really because it's where you try to capture enough breath in your mouth to keep the note even while you're breathing in through your nose. So you're basically squeezing the air from your mouth and breathing in at the same time. But it's really hard to keep the pitch like
Yeah.
even. And
Yeah.
I know I've seen trumpet players and other wind instrument players that can just keep the pitch even all the way through, even when they're transferring, and that's really tough.
I
I mean,
bet.
I when I was getting better at it, I would always I would be dipping, like
Yeah.
the pitch would like fall off because I wasn't able to keep the same air pressure.
That's one
But
thing.
yeah,
That's one thing I really appreciate about like when musicians get into a certain level of like technical advancement, there's these things that they can do that almost seem like inhuman, like you look at like death metal singers and stuff like that, they use like 3 different parts of their vocal cords to create
Yeah,
like
yeah.
animal sounds, sometimes like pig squeals or like
Without hurting themselves,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Without damaging
Yeah,
their
'cause, like,
vocal cord, because it's
who was it? Steve Tyler, was it? He's had like 2 different surgeries on his vocal cords from like blowing them out from screaming, and like
Yep.
they've somehow managed to find a way to do it
Yep.
where it doesn't hurt them, which is insane.
Absolutely, and I think it really comes down to modern vocal coaches that know what they're doing,
Yeah.
and know what will damage, or what activities will cause harm.
Mhm.
That And I think, I mean, obviously these older bands like Aerosmith and stuff, I mean, they're super loud band.
Yeah.
Like imagine trying to keep up with that. And
Yeah.
then especially with poor monitoring on stage and,
Oh yeah.
everything else, like, you're basically, yeah. So, I mean, you understand why these guys had to just,
Felt it. Yeah.
belt it. And then possibly not even having, a consistent vocal coach or things like that really come into play.
Well, yeah, I guess that was kind of like the rock and roll thing, right? Don't they have a saying in jazz school like do your homework or else you might become a rock musician?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome, man.
Oh, man.
So which artist did you see at first or hear at first when you were like I want to play that kind of music? What was the first one that you can remember going way back?
Oh, gosh. My love of music is really multiple genres.
Yeah.
Like almost every genre, there's something that I like. But early on, I was fascinated. Obviously, being a trumpet player, I was fascinated with other trumpet players. So I was listening to Maynard Ferguson, who is one of those guys that can hit the super mega high notes easily. He's from Toronto, a Canadian guy.
So is it difficult to hit higher notes with
It's
brass instruments? Is that
it is.
really?
Yeah, yeah. You really have to have sometimes even a special trumpet that has a smaller diameter lead pipe and special mouthpieces that force the air quicker through the instrument.
And is that more exclusively to things like trumpets and like trombones?
Even trombones, more of the mouthpiece instruments. Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
but
Yeah.
saxophones? Because
Saxophone-
saxophones have a reed, right?
Saxophones have a reed, and then
Yeah.
also saxophones can go up and down the octave just by hitting keys.
Yeah.
So and so everything is right under the keys. You have to know
Yeah.
what they do, but with trumpet and trombone, you have to use air pressure to get to different registers.
Oh, so you really
So
got
you
to
really
hit that
to hit that high note, you got to frickin' give her. You got to give her on the air.
You know, I didn't know that. I've been around a lot of brass players before, and I've never knew that about.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah. It's
Crazy.
that basically how it breaks down, and I've never been that guy. I mean, I can get a good height,
Mhm.
like a high C or maybe a high D, but some of these guys are going triple C's, triple D's, like up an octave beyond what I can do
Holy shit.
and stuff like that. And I just never been able to do that. I also prefer a warmer sounding instrument,
Yeah.
which in a lot of those, the what we would call a lead trumpet. Like in a big band, he's the guy that does all the high notes. So he would have an instrument that has a smaller bore pipe and the specialized mouthpiece,
Mhm.
but that makes the instrument sound thinner. So when you're playing in the lower range, it's very thin. I mean, you can get the high notes really great,
Mhm.
but because I was doing a lot of solo stuff, so I was a second chair a lot of times. The second chair in a big band is always your solo chair. I would be doing the solos and the flugelhorn solos and stuff like that. So I wanted to have more warmth and dexterity down lower. And leave all the high stuff to the lead guy,
Flugelhorn.
Yeah, flugelhorn. It's like a larger trumpet. It's like
Yeah.
a inflated trumpet. Sounds kind of like a French horn in
Yeah.
a way, and it's really smooth. Like it's not edgy. Trumpets can be edgy sometimes. Like if someone's sitting in the front row and you've got a trumpet there and
Kind of sharp.
you hit some notes,
Yeah.
people are going to be like they're going to be jumping a bit. But the flugelhorn, you can dig in, and it's always really smooth. So I use that a lot for smaller jazz gigs where there may be the people are sitting closer, things like that. It's almost my favorite instrument to play. I love it. It's super smooth.
Would it be fair to compare the trumpet to flugelhorn as like a violin to a cello almost?
Quite similar, working kind of within the same registers, but tonally quite a bit different.
Yeah.
So that's actually a very good analogy of that. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I noticed with my younger brother he's an accomplished concert violinist. He's like really good, and he will never play in front of us. It's kind of my fault. I was the guitar guy, and Benny was the violinist, and I'd always like rag on his violin shit.
That's what brothers are supposed to do.
I know, but he hasn't. He doesn't pull the thing out very much. But I noticed when he was practicing, I guess it's kind of like a guitar and a bass. You can really hear when the sixth string or the violin misses something. There's like whether that it be that you're not pulling the bow properly, or there's just a misstep, versus like something in a lower register like a cello or I guess like a flugelhorn.
Yep.
Where it's almost like not as noticeable.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot more precision that needs to be taken when it comes to those higher note instruments.
Absolutely.
Right?
Because you know why? Because they live those notes live closer together on the fretboard.
Yeah.
So you can move just a tiny bit and it changes. Whereas a cello, you've got a bit of room to, I'm a bit flat, a bit sharp. I mean, I'm not a cello player or a violinist.
Yeah.
I
You've been around them
I've been
enough,
around them a
yeah.
lot and really love those instruments. But yeah, violin is staggeringly hard to get because there's no frets.
Yeah.
You're using your ear. You're using like muscle memory, and
Incredibly
the notes
difficult,
are
man.
living so close
Yeah.
together.
And
So
you're not picking, you're raking a bow.
and that's the other
And holding with
mechanical.
the chin.
It's like, and that's why it takes so long for virtuosos to kind of rise up because they need constant tutelage and everything to kind of keep it together. It's but I think as if with any instrument, I mean, if you can at least hammer out a few days a week, half hour of chords and stuff, it's gonna
Yeah.
keep your chops good.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it's gonna keep them better, and that's why even now, if I'm not performing, I just try to do 20 minutes a day at least. I know that that's not enough, but it's better than nothing.
More than me, man.
And just try to keep those chops going, and so that you're ready for things that come up.
Yeah. In case
absolutely.
you get a sudden call, we need a player tonight.
Yeah,
Go
well, I
jump over.
just recently got a call. There's a jam happening on Saturday that a photographer friend of mine is putting together, and he asked me to just bring my horn down, and there's going to be some audience interaction. Like he wants the band. There's going to be 4 or 5 other players, and we don't know each other. It's kind of like an improv jam thing,
Oh, yeah.
and then there's going to be audience participation, and he's going to be. I don't know this. I just said, hey, I'll do it.
Cool.
I'll,
Wicked.
I'll let you know what happens, but it's one of those things. So, I mean, if I hadn't practiced this week, I'd be like, oh, crap, I'm going to screw up, or I'm not going to have my chops together for the show or whatever. But, so yeah, that's part of the reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Mhm.
Wow, man.
Those spontaneous events.
Yeah. So going back to like the artist that like got you into it, like I am probably criminally undereducated in the world of jazz. I like, at least for trumpet players, I knew that Louis Armstrong. Obviously.
Well, he was one of my idols.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, that was my
Totally.
We played "Wonderful World" was my grandfather's funeral song, and like it's been a song that has like really had a lot of meaning to me over like most of my life.
Well, all my life. Yeah, absolutely.
And,
It's so poignant. Yeah.
Coltrane, and like honestly, after that, it just goes blank for me. Like,
No, I hear
do you have
ya.
any recommendations?
Well, I mean, obviously Miles Davis. I mean,
Miles Davis.
I
okay,
mean,
yeah.
he's kind of the trumpet god, and he also lives more in the range that I play in. Like
Okay.
he can hit high notes, but he's not living in the high range all the time like some trumpet players that I followed.
So I guess is it?
But yeah, I mean, there's so many. I mean, as far as trumpet players go, I mean, Freddie Hubbard's another one for me. He's just an amazing trumpet player. Obviously Maynard Ferguson. But yeah, I mean, I admire so many other
Musician.
jazz musicians that aren't trumpet players. So I mean,
Okay.
and there's you take. I mean, it's one of those things where you kind of have to dive into it. Like there's certain genres you have to kind of dive into it to really understand
Yeah, that
who's
was
a part of it, who did this and who did that, and I mean, in any genre,
Yeah.
even some of the new metal stuff and all
that
that
was-
kind of stuff.
that
There's
was
so
my-
many,
That's where I took my deep dive. Was in,
and some
like,
of
the
them are
metal world, yeah.
subgenres, and some of them are
Oh, dude, yeah,
it's just,
yeah. Like you look at there's a
sludge, whatever.
what is it? There's a documentary called Global Metal, I think. and it's all about like the fucking some odd hundreds of subgenres of metal that have come from around the world.
Totally.
So I'd assume that's probably the same with jazz then. There's like a huge
Absolute. There's a
Yeah.
huge like. This one's a bit more traditional. This one's a bit more fusiony. This one's a bit, like blah 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 blah
Yeah.
blah. Like everyone's got their own take on it. But that's part of the refreshing part of it because it's kind of like leaving that open for the musicians to decide what they want
Yeah.
to put in there instead of it being a fixed thing.
Yeah. What's
like-
your take on fusion jazz, by the way? Because I hear it and like some of it, I can listen and appreciate it, but other times it really does sound like they're all just playing their own thing. And I know that at some point they do all kind of come back into it and like to complete the structure, right? But
Yeah.
it's just
It's pretty cerebral.
Yeah.
It's hard for a lot of people to kind of grasp because it's not constructed like a normal song would be, a verse, chorus, bridge,
Yeah.
whatever. But I admire it because of just the expertise of these.
oh yeah, they're masters
of
not only
these-
of the instruments but of the
Yeah.
theory too, right?
Like they're so good that they're over even my head sometimes as far as what's going on. Now you can, as you just said, they do go away and then come back.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, you got to know a lot.
Yeah.
Like you won't even know when or how to come back if you haven't done all the work to So it's one of those things where you can kind of pick up on these guys have been playing together a long time, or they're all just real monsters,
Hmm.
and they're really good at what they do. And they're able to listen, and a lot of it is just listening really well to each other, and not stepping on each other.
Picking up on the
Yeah,
cues
finding
and
out
stuff.
where to
Yeah.
pick it, dynamics, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's. I mean, there's obviously not a huge market for jazz fusion or rock jazz fusion. I love it still. I've got a huge part of my record collection is mostly older jazz fusion like 70s, 80s.
Hmm.
And it's just amazing stuff, but
But
it's not commercial, like
yeah.
it's
Well, it seems
yeah.
to be like the more in depth the knowledge needs to be of like almost any art form, really, when I think about it, the less marketable it is to people who don't understand it.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
fusion jazz, I mean, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but when I listen to fusion jazz and like I look at the kind of people who play that genre as like a full time thing, even they're absolute masters of the craft. They understand music theory as if they've been breathing it since they
Hmm.
were born.
Hmm. They can read chords and just
Yeah,
charts.
and
Yeah, yeah.
they just have like almost like a sixth sense for it.
Hmm.
Um, but if you're not educated in the world of music theory and I guess jazz too, it sounds like craziness. I guess it's kind of
Well, it
like black
does. It
metal or
sounds
something,
like it
right?
sounds like cacophony, or like where are they going now? Like
Yeah,
there's no context of where things should go,
yeah,
But that for a musician that's used to playing stuff that's always scripted
yeah,
and laid out that way is very refreshing. So,
yeah,
and that's why I love. I mean, one of my favorite things is to get a nice little 4-piece jazz combo together and perform. But you'll never get paid, or you'll hardly ever get any money. And most people aren't going to really, unless they know jazz, they're not really going to understand what the hell's going on. And
yeah,
it's kind of like just it ends up being background music. Now it's very, very rewarding to the people that are playing, but it's so uncommercial that it's one of those things where I mean, right now I'm trying to find a nice happy balance
like a
between
medium.
commercial
Yeah.
and really fresh and inspiring.
Well, you were pretty
Because
close to it on the
sometimes
last gig.
commercial can be just like the same old thing, or
Well, yeah, four
right?
chords, right? It's
Yeah,
the four chord, like
exactly.
it's
And you're kind of like, oh,
yeah,
this is you're not excited about going to do the gig,
yeah,
Whereas if you try to keep that uh, certain elements for different people to latch onto,
mhm,
like cool beats,
yeah,
some cool delays and verbs, or like maybe a synth bass line or something like that. Oh, that's cool. Oh, neat beat. But they don't know that I'm doing a pentatonic run
yeah,
on my trumpet up through this effects processor playing, but maybe some of the other people go, oh, that was a pentatonic scale.
yeah. There were so many
So you
layers to your
kind of trying
performance
to,
that night. It
well,
was
yeah, you're trying to
insane.
give everyone a little something so
Yeah,
that it's not like they're just, completely like over their head, or that, because that's not fair.
yeah,
You're there performing for people, not for yourself. So
yeah. Well, I mean, like it's a give and take kind of thing, right?
hmm.
Like you
Hmm.
wouldn't do it entirely if it was just because you want to perform for people, right? It's obvious that like playing the music.
Is rewarding.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. You finally feel like you're all the hundreds of hours you spent on the song is you're finally able to perform it.
yeah.
Like it's,
You mentioned pentatonic there. Obviously, like it's a mode, like a scale structure, right?
hmm.
In in your world, I view like jazz musicians as like this whole other like city that I've never visited, like a culture that I'm frankly pretty um inept, like ineptly educated on. Like I know some ins and outs of it, but like I was, rock and funk and stuff like that. I think I know more about almost any other genre of music than I do about jazz music, and it's always because it
Hmm.
seems so intimidating to me. And like the people who are
It
associating
is.
with it are like real solid musicians.
It is.
So
It is. It's like it's very hard to kind of wiggle your way into it unless. And I mean, luckily, I came through. I went to university, and I played in a lot. Like I barely made it through high school. I mean, I basically got A pluses in all the music, and that's what got me out. That got me through high school.
yeah,
So I was literally living music throughout that whole time, and then went to university for jazz training and classical training and stuff like that. So that really helped me to
which university did
much.
you go to?
Brandon University in Manitoba, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they have an amazing music school there.
I have
Um,
an auntie who is the professor of music at the University of Saskatchewan.
oh, okay, okay.
And I didn't know that until I was like old enough. She's a very reserved woman, very
Mhm.
quiet,
Mhm.
very kind, but just
Mhm.
like not doesn't she's very soft spoken. But she has done like global tours on like playing classical and like I wonder I've never asked her about jazz. I know she said that in the 80s she had a phase where she was experimenting with like synthesizers and stuff like
Cool,
that in like
cool.
the original days of synthesizers and stuff.
Absolutely.
Um, but that's kind of in Canada. That's close. Manitoba and
It's very
Saskatchewan.
close, yeah, and we
Yeah.
we played a number of, concerts. We even played the jazz festival there, in Saskatoon.
Cool.
I'm I don't wanna say what year, quite a while ago.
Yeah.
But that was when I was touring with a band called Global Village, and we were touring around Canada, and that was a nine-piece, kind of South African jive, Afro Latin, some reggae, but
Wow.
we played Winnipeg Folk Fest and a whole bunch of, like back then, tours were really like, doing college and university tours were popular, so you would go to, uh, the University of Saskatchewan in Regina, and then you'd play their pub or and all the students would come, and then you go to, Calgary, and you go to Edmonton, you go to, and play all the universities, do a
Yeah.
little, like, a college or university tour, and then you'd also do, like and then in the summer, you do the, festivals. So, like, the colleges and universities would be kinda like, after Christmas, like, end of January up through spring, and then by the time that was happening, we were already applying for all the other festivals, and then we would jump out again and do another, like, 15 date kind of festival thing. But yeah, you were younger then. We had 2 freaking panel vans with stinky guys in there, and, like, one was
Fuck
full of
yeah.
gear and one was full of guys, and it's like, you're trying to
Yeah.
sleep and this, like, just, oh.
Well, it goes to show it doesn't matter what genre of music you're playing. Rock and roll's always somewhere, right? Fucking
Absolutely,
bunch of smelly guys in
absolutely,
a panel van ripping.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Come on, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that
that's
that
awesome.
sums it up.
Very cool, man. Very cool. So you've been playing your entire life and like professionally then. Have there been any like careers that you've gone into aside from like I know you work in film a little bit now. You just got in the Directors Guild.
Yep.
Congratulations. Welcome.
Yeah, super excited
Uh-huh.
about that.
Yeah. But
Well, when I was obviously it we never we never made a lot of money. We managed to make enough to get through each year, but it was always a catch-up game, right? Because 'Cause you're always trying to get bigger gigs and better paying gigs and larger stages. Um, so yeah, I mean, I was also kind of subbing in, doing, live sound. So like starting to work for some local companies and stuff like that, just mixing, hauling the equipment, stuff like that, and also started working once I was back in Vancouver, working for Rocky Mountain Sound and another company called Solotech. They're out of Montreal, and they
cool.
they used to do all the Symphony of Fire,
Oh, really?
sound. So we would set up a giant, humongous JBL rig on English Bay, and then monitor it,
So
for like
cool.
days and days and days,
Yeah.
and then we'd rip it all down. But it'd be like an 80,000 watt system,
Yeah,
right?
it's
Like with
huge.
huge subs and everything. And then also did through that did worked on the road crew for Bon Jovi, and also worked on the road crew for Smashing Pumpkins in the
What?
'90s, and unloading semis and then loading them and go to the next
You were
city.
you
And
were a roadie for Bon Jovi though.
I was, yeah, out of 65 others, yeah, but
That's so
yeah,
cool.
but basically a grunt
Yeah.
at that time. Just move that sub, get those monitors on stage, and a bit of ground rigging. Like I wasn't doing any of the high rig stuff because I'm not really fond of heights, but
Yeah.
but I did all ground rigging, and obviously running all their giant Soca cables, all these giant power
Yeah,
cables and
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
for all. Because back then it was all Parcans, right? It was all
Real bulbs, not
real bulbs.
LEDs. Yeah.
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 So you're running 600-volt power supplies for your truss. Like
Jesus Christ, man,
like
that's
really,
terrifying.
like, yeah. So other guys would wire those, but we would be pulling all these super mega heavy cables,
Like probably
like cables that were like this thick, that were all solid core multiplex, and they were so freaking heavy.
I
They were
bet.
so freaking heavy.
That's
Like
just
we'd have multiple guys dragging them down the arena floor to get them back to front of house. and stuff, and oh man, they were so heavy.
Insane.
You'd pull your
Oh, I bet.
shoulders and everything.
Yeah. Never mind having to go to a gym and toss those ropes or
Oh
whatever.
yeah,
they do.
yeah.
You
No,
got the fucking giant cable to
probably
pull. Like,
probably 4 feet of this cable was like 100 pounds.
whoa.
It had to be.
Holy
Like it had to
shit.
because sometimes we'd have 2 or 3 guys like struggling to pull it.
Did you ever see one
But-
of them? Like, did you ever see one like short or whatever? Like, was there
Oh
ever,
no,
like,
no,
a
no,
moment where
no. They were all and even back then the electrical guys on those shows would be like they had those infrared pens, and they would be checking all the cables. If there's any cracks or anything, there'd be an X, and then there would be it would either be repaired or it would be decommissioned.
Wow.
But yeah, no, there was never anything like that. The worst thing I ever saw was, and this is a testament to, don't try and do things quickly.
Okay.
Guy on a 30-foot ladder, he decides to run back up it without his stabilizer, and because he just sees something he wants to fix, falls.
Oof.
Yeah.
Off 30
Broke his
feet.
broke his back. Probably not working in that field anymore.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
And it was just a big eye opener. Luckily, he had his helmet on and he had it strapped, so luckily he didn't
Kept his
concuss
brain in,
himself or
yeah.
exactly. But it was a scary moment.
30 feet. That's
That's a
high.
lot. That's 2 stories. Yeah, it's a little bit more than 2 stories.
Yeah, I think
and it was on the concrete.
yeah, I
on
think
the
one story is
polished
roughly
concrete.
10 feet, give or take.
Yeah,
right?
pretty much,
That's-
right?
Yeah, that's
pretty much.
fucking high on a polished like arena floor. I
Arena
guess.
floor. Yeah.
Oh god
Yeah.
damn, man.
So that was just like, and then huge, obviously there was lots of meetings after that
Yeah.
about safety and,
I
and
bet.
stuff like that,
Did you ever get a chance to jam with any of the musicians you toured with? No?
It's same as film,
Yeah.
same as film.
Okay.
If they talk to you, then that's
Say
good.
hi and stuff.
But
yeah.
you don't fanboy over like that. Like basically, if you do that, you're fired.
Yeah.
It's basically is what it was.
Yeah, you're part of the crew. You're not one of the fans.
No,
Yeah.
no, and get out of their way. They're
Yeah.
getting ready. They're working, and you're working too. So just it's kind of the same as film. Although I find film is a little more leeway as long as the actor or actress talks to you first,
Mhm.
and not to go on too long about stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. I mean, I remember the band Bon Jovi. They went, "Hey guys, you guys are doing a great job," that kind of thing to the crew, and then we were all like, "Yeah," kind of vibe. That's about it, right?
Cool.
Which is fine. It's a professional environment, and as with anything like that, there's really no time. Like
Yeah.
you're just going. And it's like the show must go on. And usually at every setup, there's something that goes wrong. Like the pins are missing from this side of the stage, or or whatever, the stairs.
Yeah, I
there's
probably
always
couldn't-
something, right?
Yeah, I probably could never be a roadie then. I'd be busy. Like, I'd see Richie Sambora pass by and be like, "Hey, man, can I have a guitar pick?" Like, just like instantly, I'd be fangirling over those guys. So
Oh,
like,
it was tough, and I knew
Yeah.
that it was tough for a lot of them. But it
bet.
was well established before the
Yeah.
tour happened that it was going to be.
Was it a good experience for you? Did you?
It
enjoy
was good. It was
Yeah?
good. Yeah, I'm glad that I did it when I was a lot younger because man, so much gear.
Yeah. Which
So much
ones?
gear.
Which between Bon Jovi and Smashing Pumpkins? I'm assuming Bon Jovi probably had a much larger setup, but Smashing Pumpkins were pretty.
They
fucking huge
they both
too,
had
right?
pretty big setups.
Yeah.
Yeah. The biggest one was at BC Place with Smashing Pumpkins, and that was like late '90s. It was, I think, it may have been their last show,
Wow,
or maybe it was their last tour.
that's a huge arena too.
And it was just packed. It was just packed. I can't even remember who opened, but no, it was killer. And they had a crazy ass rig in there. It was like the French company VDOSC. They had a big giant. The company that invented line arrays, basically.
Oh, what?
Yeah,
Okay.
VDOSC. I think is it L Acoustics? Yeah, I
Maybe.
think it's L Acoustics is the company, and then the brand was the VDOSC system.
You mind just giving your mic just a little tip towards you?
Oh, yeah,
Right
no
there,
problem.
there you
But yeah, anyway, it was. I love PA systems. Like I have a pretty big one myself.
Yeah, I
in
saw.
storage. Yeah.
Oh, in
And-
storage. Maybe I didn't see it there.
That's but I've always been a fanboy for hi-fi and for
Yeah, you're an
speakers and
audiophile for
stuff.
sure. Yeah.
I freak out about that
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, obviously trying to keep it within you can get way out of control
Yeah. Oh,
with hi-fi stuff.
I
It gets
should have got you
way
to bring one of
overpriced.
those vintage mics in here just to like show
Oh, yeah,
and
I
tell
should have.
everyone. That would have
I
been sick.
should have done that.
Those are wild. You got some from like what's the oldest one that you have there?
Well, there's a RCA. The ribbon's blown in it though. I've got to get it replaced.
Okay.
But it's probably late 50s, early 60s kind of range.
So cool.
That's probably the earliest one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is. I'm thinking about just instead of reinstalling the ribbon, just mounting like a little SM58 or SM57 capsule in there instead. It's just a standard dynamic capsule, but it'll just be way more reliable, and it'll sound like a 57, which is a very common microphone. So
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Cool.
And an easier mod than getting the ribbon, reattaching this the delicate ribbon and all that kind of stuff. It's like whoa. But no, I love that kind of stuff. I also like just really unique sounding microphones, like microphones that are. I've got this other mic I didn't show you, but it's supposed to be the best harmonica microphone in the world.
harmonica microphone. Okay.
It's a Shure. I think it's the 565. It's all silver. It's got an aluminum body, and it apparently, for whatever reason, the characteristics are like. So many like professional harmonica players love these.
Really?
Like they love them.
What? So
And now it's probably because there's a little bit of a mid dip in them,
okay.
so that they're not so pointy and harsh.
Okay.
So you can really dig in on the harmonica and it not being one of those things where it can
Softens
be
it up a
too
little bit.
yeah,
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of takes a little bit of the edge off.
Not so raky on the ears. or whatever.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah. So
Very cool.
but I don't know. I've only used it a couple of times, not on a harmonica. So, but I love unique sounding stuff that you can get to know the mic and what characteristics it has, and then pull it out when you're looking for something like that.
Do you remember the first piece of audio equipment that you got around that really triggered that interest in you? Like, was there a certain, like, was it a speaker or an amplifier or something, or like a microphone that like you were just like, wow, this is fucking cool, and then you just decided to take it apart or something and learn?
You know what? The first thing that I got was a Sony portable DAT machine. So a digital audio tape. So it used tape, but it was a 16-bit digital recorder. And you can plug a mic into it. So I was starting to record some of my jazz combo stuff and everything. So I was more interested in just kind of archiving some of the stuff that I'd done or
Yeah.
in that way. So that was the first thing. And luckily that was kind of like I begged my parents. It was kind of expensive. And I begged my parents so much that they got grandma and grandpa and grandma and granddad and Kev. So everyone pitched in to get me this one thing that I,
Oh,
wanted.
that's so cool.
that
Very
was
cool.
like just
Yeah.
and then I was out there recording everything, at that point.
That sounds like an amazing.
So I've got a
family to
giant
have.
tub full of digital audio tapes with me literally going around Vancouver on my skateboard, recording on the bus, like just recording and then using those in songs and like, just as weird, city sounds
Yeah.
in the background of a, trippy track or something like that, that kind of stuff. And
So you're a man who's like just truly
Yeah.
fascinated by the sense of hearing and sound. And
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Whereabouts were you saying that you lived in? Have you been in Vancouver this whole time, like most of your life?
I
or-
grew up in Maple Ridge.
Yeah.
And then I lived in Vancouver through till the end of the 90s. At that time is when I moved up to Kamloops
Right.
to join a restaurant that my brother already had, and his business partner wanted out, and so I bought in. And it was on Victoria. It was where Cowboy Coffee used to be.
What was it called?
It was called Elements Cafe,
Fuck yeah! No,
and we had jazz.
I had coffee in that place.
We had jazz Fridays and Saturdays, or we had music Fridays. We had music Fridays and Saturdays.
Yeah.
We would try to kind of get the jazz groups that were coming through BC because they would stop here on their way to Vancouver.
Kamloops
and
is a
stuff like
gas
that.
gig,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's-
absolutely. So
They do.
it worked out pretty well. The problem is that back then there was no Blue Grotto, there was no Art We Are, there was no there was almost nothing down there.
So you guys were the space that was
And trying to get people to come down at night.
didn't happen.
well, we'd have a great lunch. We'd have a great breakfast and lunch, and then after 5 p.m., downtown would just die. Like there would be nobody around.
Not much different now either.
Well, it's at least a little better. There, at least there's
Yeah.
a few clubs, like there's the Commodore, there's the
Yeah, I
Blue
get yeah.
Grotto, but back then, imagine if you think it's bad now,
Yeah.
imagine it back then. Like we were literally, I
Deadly.
was going up to Aberdeen to flyer, like stop, like put up posters, like come
Wow.
on down. There's like trying to get friends. Oh, I got to drive all the way from Sahali. It's like,
Oh my
oh
god.
my
'Cause
gosh,
that's so far.
like
The whole
when you're
10
from
minutes.
Vancouver, I used to
Yeah.
drive from Maple Ridge to see a concert in Vancouver. It took
Oh,
me an
yeah.
hour,
Yeah.
So like I'd be like, what? These people don't like culture, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Like, fuck. Anyway, it was tough slog, and we managed to stick it out for a couple of years, and I managed to sell it. But that's what got me up to Kamloops.
Cool.
And then after that went down, I started working for audiovisual companies because I had the experience working for Rocky Mountain Sound and stuff like that, and doing the audio stuff. So started working for SW Audiovisual out of Kelowna, and they had a branch in Kamloops. So we were doing all the corporate stuff. So we're going to setting up projectors and whiteboards and
Yep.
stuff like that for corporate meetings and things like that, big and small. But that is how I was able to chase the music thing, because
Mhm.
you can't just be a full-time musician and expect to pay the bills.
Yeah.
Um,
At least
I mean,
90% of the
you
time
gotta,
that's the case.
yeah. So I was always, getting jobs that paid good money, that were hard jobs, but that paid well to keep that music thing
Yeah.
going. Same with the film thing too. I mean, I'm able to work for 6 months and then
Take your
have
time
no
off
problem
after.
take a couple months off and do some music and recording and blah blah blah.
And you
And
don't have to worry about losing the job after. Like,
exactly,
you can always go back
exactly.
and find work.
Well, you find your teams, right? And
Yeah.
then you just keep calling them up. Hey, what's the next show?
Networking is
And
key.
exactly,
Mm.
yeah. But obviously, still chasing the. I'd love to make even just a decent living as a musician.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
I'm actually curious about that because I heard that like there was a point. I think it was when iTunes first came out and stuff, and people were still buying music online.
hmm
That it was possible to be a person who would make like not like millions of dollars as a musician, but make like a middle class income
Yeah,
and be a working musician selling their music on iTunes and stuff like
yeah.
that.
At least be able to make $4 or $5 a month, kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Yeah, and like with the
Uh,
whole idea of being able to like access other musicians and stuff like kind of through the iTunes store and things like that. It was kind of more possible. But now, and I guess before that, it was harder because you didn't have the internet. There wasn't a very easy way for you to like get that much exposure on
Yep.
your own, right?
Yeah, you
And
had to do physical
Yeah.
exposure. Yeah,
And now
absolutely.
with the streaming companies just absolutely jacking everyone,
Yeah.
it's kind of gone to the wayside now, eh?
Well, I mean, it's almost like the thing is that everybody asks you, "What's your Spotify?" But it's like it's literally you lose money by
Yeah.
putting it on.
Yeah,
But otherwise, people won't hear you.
yeah,
So it's kind of a catch-22 in a way, between a rock and a hard place. So you kind of have to. I mean, I did. I'm on all those
oh yeah, yeah.
Deezer
I
and
mean,
all
you
that
get
kind of stuff.
exposure, and now
It's just that for me, it's about I'm such an old school marketer guy that now I'm trying to learn more and more, and I think I'm getting better at it. But I'm trying to learn more and more about how to properly
social media marketing and stuff like
utilize the social media stuff I have, and also standardize the message across every platform, pictures, color
Yeah.
palette, fonts, things like that. So
Yeah.
I've pretty much got, but there's tweaks on everything, and it's just I find that I get kind of flustered sometimes, going, oh,
It's a
just like,
lot, man.
I'd prefer to hire somebody that just was all over it, and then I could just no, I want this and I want that, or just pay them to do it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I feel you
I'd
there.
love, but I'd want to be sitting there with them though. But it's just that things change so quick, um, the thing is, it's a good thing because if you can get a good system down with how to approach your marketing for your group on the new social medias and all that kind of thing, you do have a lot more power than you used to. I mean, before we had to go to a publishing company or we had to go to a publishing / marketing company and let them know that, okay, we're playing 4 gigs in the Winnipeg area.
Yeah.
Over the March and April, we got to hire this company to get some of
Advertising.
our stuff into the newspaper,
Mm.
and and then the publishing company also knows the guys on Rock 107 FM and the So
Yeah, and then they
so
charge you for like almost
well,
their
then
entire
they
profit,
charge you
right?
for it.
Yeah.
So and it also, it depends on how much you'll get. 3 of these and 2 of those for $500 or whatever. So you're already out of pocket. And now you can do that free, so to speak, on social media,
Yeah.
but there's always a better way, right? There's always a better way of utilizing it. And
Yeah.
I know some artists that are just awesome at marketing online and stuff like that. And have really figured out what works for them.
Yeah, they're hitting that TikTok up hard, man.
Yeah,
It's just,
I'm not doing that.
it's
I
a
just can't do
yeah.
TikTok.
Well, I'm not a
I
big
don't
fan of it
know.
either. It's kind of
But
strange that like the attention span as like each generation is born just gets shorter and shorter. And now the most popular format to view is less than 2 minutes. It's like,
it's astonishing.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and
crazy.
I've even found it myself. I think that the speed of life and the speed of how things are marketed nowadays is affecting everyone. I mean, I'll watch older movies that I love.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, right around Halloween, I watched the Mel Brooks Young Frankenstein.
Oh, sweet.
It's
Nice.
hilarious.
Yeah. Mel Brooks, man, what a fucking guy. Just a
Awesome.
classic.
But
Yeah.
from today's standards, it's slow.
Oh yeah. Oh
Like
yeah.
a lot of younger people would be sitting there going,
They're not willing to wait.
like,
Yeah.
they don't see the buildup, or they don't see the anticipation in how it was written. So it's strange, but I love it. I love it.
I don't think it's strange. I think what's happening now is strange. Like, like how do you
agree.
intake art and like media in such a short amount of time and feel the same fulfillment from it, Like I don't think like I feel like that's kind of something that's being lost with the shorter formats that's going on is there's no build. There's no anticipation for that climax.
Yeah.
Instead, you can just swipe down and get another climax after another climax.
It seems like it's all punchline.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
like just there's nothing, almost nothing else.
Yeah.
And it's I I don't get it.
Yeah, like
I don't really get it.
I kind of used to be that way a bit when I was growing up with like with music, just in the sense that like I hardly ever bought albums. I always had like singles. I was just a big fan of like hits. I didn't really know what albums were until I was probably 10 or 11 years old, maybe a bit older even. And like by that point, I would listen to albums, but I definitely have these moments where I just be like, why did I buy this whole thing when I only want these 2 tracks?
Well, yeah, well, that's okay, and that's like finding what you like, and then streamlining your catalog,
Yeah,
basically. But
I guess it's nowadays. It's like if like say like I know I've been talking about metal a lot, but when it gets colder seasons like this, I dive right back into that thing. Summertime's all reggae and funk and stuff.
for sure.
Metal is winter is hip hop, heavy metal. That's just what I do. But it's almost like instead of listening to just one track, now you're taking the one track and you're skipping right to the breakdown. Because you just want that chugga chugga,
Yeah.
It's like that's
Yeah.
it, and like
I
there's
know.
you don't want the intro or the bridge or the verse,
Or
you
the
just want
message
the chorus.
or anything. Yeah.
Like fuck lyrics. I just want to hear some guy smashing a guitar
Yeah. Or
open
doing
for-
his crazy solo or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
giant drum solo or
for
something.
30
yeah.
seconds, and that's like it. It
Uh-huh.
doesn't make any sense to me. Like there's supposed to be a journey in taking that in,
Absolutely, and I think that's exactly what's being taken out of it is the journey or the overall message for just some shock value, basically, or some kind of I don't know.
Yeah.
It's weird. I think again with anything, and I think this has happened throughout my life, is that people go so far to one side and then they'll
It's a pendulum.
pendulum. So because they'll eventually go, I don't like that. I don't want to do that. I kind of liked it back here, or whatever. So I think there's going to be a certain part of that
Maybe
will happen.
maybe 10 years from now, there's going to be a 6-hour film released or something.
Yeah.
They just
exactly.
go from liking the short stuff to liking like the longest possible format they can
Super
find.
dramatic.
Yeah.
Huge long pauses with no music.
I don't want to see him just arriving at his house. I want to see the drive from work to his house, right?
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Every stop sign, yeah.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, like, if you had to take a shot in the dark on this, what do you think would reinvigorate people who are currently locked into that short format? What do you think would pull them away from that back into like more traditional format?
Jeez. Um, that's a toughie. I
Yeah.
mean, it would be related to each person's experience, but I think that I mean, my approach might be, "Hey, you like that song? I've got the whole album. Why don't you check
Yeah.
it out?
Yeah.
Because if you like that song, there's probably gonna be a couple others on there that aren't on radio, that aren't promoted properly, or they aren't singles
Yeah.
that you'll like as well." That might be just my off the cuff approach, but it's I kind of consider myself so far removed from that because I listen to my vinyl collection most of the time,
Cool.
and so I'll put the whole album on,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's just what I'm used to. So I'm really far removed from that other way of consuming art and music and creative stuff.
Well,
But
that's probably why you seem sane.
well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I certainly listening to little clips like that isn't going to help your attention span at
Yeah.
all. Like it's not none of that's going to help.
Do you think it
Um,
has anything to do with like? Do you think maybe if they just expose themselves to more live music, it might do
you
that for them?
nailed it. You
Yeah.
nailed it. And that was going to be my next point is that get out there, see live music and feel the energy that comes from it because you're only getting half the equation.
Yeah.
When you see a live band and there's a connection, that's when the hair stands up on your
Big
arms
time.
and stuff like that. I don't think I've ever listened to a song, well, unless it has a deep emotional meaning to me or an event in my life or something like that significant that happened, then that song, just playing it off the record would do the same thing. But
Yeah.
but live, you'll be connected to all the energy that's happening in that room, and you'll be able to see the artists interact
Yeah.
and you can kind of be a part of that, like you're in the room where it's happening and you're letting it play out.
It definitely
You're,
locks you
you're
in.
letting it, yeah, you commit to it. You're
Yeah.
not like this has to be 30 seconds, like it's go for 7 minutes.
Yeah.
I want to hear that tenor sax solo. I want to hear, a little drum fill thing
Yeah.
at the, whatever. Like, you just
And
kind of go with it.
Yeah, and for God's sakes, just put the phone away when you're at them. Like take
Yeah.
a video, sure, but don't be the guy who's just
The whole
whole
time.
time, yeah.
Yeah.
I found myself doing that at the Queens of Stone Age concert I went to recently. I was like, oh, I'm at the show. I was like, this is fucking cool. And then the next song comes, I was like, oh, I love this song. I pull it up and you're like, what am I doing?
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I put
yeah.
the phone away and just enjoy the music. Like, be there. Be in the experience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's a mistake that people make too, is that when you're focusing on your phone or whatever, you're not fully engaged
No.
with what's
You're
happening.
viewing
Yeah.
it through a little tiny window
Mhm.
instead. You might as well be watching it on a computer screen at home. 'Cause
Yeah.
frankly, it's like you're almost deafening yourself,
Yeah.
You're numbing yourself from the experience.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I agree. I completely agree with that. Now, that would be an extremely difficult thing for a venue to do is that, no cell phones out.
Yeah.
I remember in the old days when they say no, like they would check your bags for cameras and things like that,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
recording devices. Like, even though they weren't very good back then, so back then it was just lighters, right? Like everyone
Yeah.
just had their lighter out, and
Now it's phone lights.
the phone
Yeah,
lights. Yeah,
yeah.
now it's phone lighters. Yeah.
I still bring a lighter to the concert. so
Yeah,
just-
I go
yeah,
old school.
yeah.
Yeah.
You get that little burn callus on the side of your thumb.
Yeah, come on. I
Pulling
was
it
at the
out.
show.
Yeah. I have proof. Look at the burn.
Totally.
Which concert would you say you've been to? Okay, I'm sure you've been to a lot, so I'm gonna say top 3 best concerts you've seen.
Ooh. Okay, well, U2 Joshua Tree.
You two and Joshua Tree.
Yeah, front
Okay.
row,
Cool.
general seating.
Oh, at Joshua Tree.
Yeah. Or no,
Okay,
not at Joshua Tree, but the Joshua Tree album. Sorry.
Okay.
It was at BC Place.
Yeah, I was
but-
thinking of Oliver Tree is a different artist entirely. But
Oh, no,
that,
yeah.
that guy came into my head. there,
But this is like, this is late 80s. So,
also peak you two.
peak U2. Yeah.
Wicked.
Yeah. And I think probably one of my favorite albums from them, produced by Daniel Lanois
Yeah.
from Canadian,
Yeah.
back east. And, but that was an absolutely magical concert.
Yeah.
Um,
Who do you think is the most talented person in that band? You had to take. Because I've seen some stuff with Edge and like how he creates the sounds he creates with his guitar. Like
Yeah.
the processor rig that he has. It's not a foot pedal panel. It's
no,
like an entire stack.
It's a full rack.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, he really, without him in that band, it like he makes the soundscape, right?
Yeah.
Because he'd have all those stereo delays and everything, and the way that he tunes up his board, like it's just, and that's a huge thing. I think that all of them together make the package. Though.
Absolutely. But
But I think for the Edge being what he does, very important. And then, and honestly, Bono's a great lead guy, man.
And he writes the lyrics.
He's a great
right?
lead, and he does the lyrics.
Yeah,
so
he's an incredible singer.
So, and he's a great front guy.
Yeah.
Like he just really is very natural.
Flying
and
Bono arms and stuff.
He's not, and just a great band. I mean, I prefer their earlier stuff. I still admire what they do every time. Another one would be David Bowie.
Oh, I bet. You saw David Bowie?
Yeah,
Fucking
yeah.
amazing.
That was awesome at the Pacific Coliseum.
What year was that?
Oh gosh, 95.
So
That was awesome. Yeah, he came back on tour. Now I may be wrong, but from what I've heard from several interviews is that he was really low on money. He was down to his last $100,000.
Oh wow.
And he met up with his promoter buddy in LA, and they said we got to do another tour. So they did the Sound and Vision tour, where they re-released, the record label re-released all of his kind of like a greatest hits cassette and CD, and then they went on tour called Sound and Vision tour. And it
was that before
that's
or
when,
after Serious Moonlight?
That was after Serious Moonlight, but just after,
Cool.
just after, and it was great. It was like, I mean,
it's David Bowie.
David Bowie. I mean, God,
he really was
amazing.
just like the most unique person that like.
Mm-hmm.
I've got two posters at my place, dry mounted. One is Bob Marley, and the other one is a Serious Moonlight video cassette recorded concert poster that came with the VHS that my dad had.
Wow.
I found it in my mom's basement like about 20 years ago.
Awesome.
Or 15 years ago. Anyhow, a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just still in the tube and everything. And I was like, holy shit.
And it's minty.
Yep,
Yeah.
dry mounted, sitting
Awesome.
over my thing. And like, after I found that, I was like, I got to figure out who this guy is. Because I knew a couple of David Bowie tracks, but I didn't really know David Bowie.
Mm-hmm.
And like, he was so much more than just a musician. He was like,
totally.
yeah.
Oh God.
Like the embodiment of
Artiste,
self-expression.
painter. Yeah. And just a super interesting, eccentric, interesting, and hyper intelligent guy. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 3.
Mm.
Number three.
Number three. Well, it would have to be. Oh gosh, which one? Okay. One that I saw would have been when I saw Dizzy Gillespie at one of my trumpet player
One of your heroes.
gods
Wicked.
at the Queen Elizabeth Theater.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that was amazing. But one that I was, when we were on tour with that Global Village band I was telling you about, we had the opportunity to open for Bob Marley's band.
The Wailers?
The Wailers.
What?
Now, 3 of the original members were there, and a couple others couldn't make it because they had marijuana charges or something like that. They couldn't make it into Canada.
Yeah.
But I met Junior Marvin, and the original bass player, original drummer, and we opened for them in Brandon, and then we went out and opened for them, in Winnipeg, and we opened for them as well. And it was just super cool to hang out with those guys and then see them perform.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my God, there's 3 original guys, and then they hired a bunch of ringers from Toronto that to fill in the group, right?
Yeah.
But that was just like mind blowing.
I bet.
I've got their promo 8.5 by 11 on my wall, and I've got a hat that Junior Marvin gave me. But yeah, that was just like just
That's
absolutely
wicked.
mind blowing. Yeah.
You got to meet your heroes.
Yeah. Well,
very cool.
yeah.
We're at an hour, so we're just gonna take a quick 5.
Sure.
Kind of what we try to do here so that everyone has a chance to breathe. So we just finished talking about Bob Marley and the Wailers.
Yeah.
You had a chance to play with his relatives and his band.
Oh my, yeah. Well, we opened for them. Yeah,
Yeah.
So we were the opening band, but man, that was a trip. That was amazing. Yeah.
Did you manage to, I'm assuming you
We
managed to
did
talk
hang out with them.
yeah?
Yeah, we did. We were in their green room and stuff like that.
Did you ask them a lot of questions about like what the
We
big
were-
man was like?
We were reluctant to get too pushy about that, but certainly bonded on a lot of different levels. I know Junior Marvin wanted some Indian moccasins and stuff, so we were looking around for them to send
Cool.
them down to him and stuff like that. But yeah, mostly more even keel stuff. We didn't dive into anything too deep,
Yeah, you
just
didn't wanna-
out of respect.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But yeah, they were super chill. They had a giant bag of pot.
Nice.
we helped to partake in.
As they should. Yeah, come on. You don't get that kind of reputation for nothing.
No,
right?
come on. Jeez.
That was
they got to get in the right headspace for the
Yeah,
show,
man.
right? Yeah.
I found that so hilarious how like how even in the States, in some of the states still and most of the world, like let alone the States, there's like really harsh laws on weed still. But like when you take examples, like we're talking about music right now, right? The guys who were doing anything else usually were like, heavy drinkers doing a shit ton of cocaine, your typical rock star. Let's take Motley Crue, for example, or Ozzy Osbourne, right?
Just off the rails.
Like domestic assault charges, like driving under the influence, sometimes killing people, like
crashing the Ferrari, the Motley Crue guy, killing his friend in the Ferrari and whatever else. Yeah,
all that shit. And then like you look at Bob Marley, and all he ever did was smoke weed, and all he ever did was talk about peace and human loving, and never once had any violent crime charged against him or anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And for some reason, weed was the problem.
Yeah,
the examples are all over that industry.
That stems way back to Reefer Madness.
Dude, I have
I've got some old poster. I've got you see my poster at home, the one
the Reefer Madness one.
Yeah.
Was it the red and yellow one, right?
Yeah.
I've got the same one.
Oh, you do? Okay, there we go.
Dude.
There we go.
Classic, man. Like
absolutely.
You've watched that flick a few times, and I assume.
And noticing that they're all sponsored by the Associated Brewers Association.
Yeah.
So all the people that brew liquor don't want people to smoke pot.
Yeah, and
they want them to keep drinking.
Yeah, and the logging companies too, right?
Yeah,
because like the weed would have been would have put the paper industry out of business as far as
the hemp. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, if they started Oh, just craziness, eh?
Oh man, that one line in the movie, talking about reefer or something. It's like, no, you don't want to smoke that. Johnny or whoever smoked a reefer cigarette and murdered his whole family with an axe. It's like, what?
No, he drank 6 quarts of moonshine, and then that happened.
Yeah, like fucking just wild, man. That's crazy.
Yeah.
What experience? Like obviously, substances are a very prevalent thing in the world of music,
in entertainment, or with creatives, I think in general.
Yeah. Where would you say you've seen the most violent examples of it and the least violent? I guess the more creatively empowering uses of it versus the more self-destructive uses. And can you divide that into like genres of music that you might have seen it more?
Well, certainly certain genres in punk, stuff like that.
Punk was,
booze and uppers, basically. Any kind of uppers.
You got to be high on meth to play that fast.
Well, or, whatever, Coke or, Benzies or whatever. I don't know, not Benzies, but, there all these crazy, speed pills and things like that,
Yeah.
But I think, overall, the biggest damage I've seen is through alcohol, and I've in the past known musicians that are no longer with us, that their breakfast was a Mickey of Fireball.
Holy fuck!
And they couldn't eat before they had that Mickey.
Really?
And things like that, where you're so toxic that you can't really function properly. Now the most beneficial, and this would have to exist within a situation where you're with certain musicians that and you're writing and there's no rules. Like you kind of, you basically have an open writing session. Um, Having a few puffs of a joint or something like that
Help get the
doesn't
great,
hurt,
yeah, helps to get the juices flowing for
and
sure.
just get in the zone,
Mhm.
and especially if there's a little bit of anxiety or something between the musicians initially that
Yeah.
help to loosen things up a bit. Obviously, too much is too much, but that's certainly something that never hurt.
Yeah.
Never hurt.
Yeah.
There was always way more creative things happening. Now, as far as with everything else, I think most of the other things are pretty destructive. I mean,
Yeah.
life doesn't get better when you start doing coke.
True.
It doesn't.
It just
It
turns
never
into
gets better.
It's a bit more of a headache, in fact.
Ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
So, and things like that, right? Like where it's just, you end up, the thing is you kind of buy into this whole rock star thing, right? Like which has
Yeah.
been piped through media and movies and
Oh, yeah,
everything else.
they've
And
glamorized it
you
so
bought the
much.
Kool-Aid,
Yeah.
basically. And same with gangster rap and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's a similar thing where,
Yeah.
there's this whole really fake persona that comes along with that.
Yeah, you
And
can't just smoke a blunt. You got to have like a whole
oh,
like
yeah,
40 OE with
Lamborghini
it
and your
and yeah.
$10,000 watch and
Yeah.
gold teeth and everything else.
Yeah.
To look the part or something. But
Well, that's exactly
yeah.
it. It's kind of like they've when they come up in that form of music, and then they're like, well, I want to seem like my heroes, but even more so, right? So they
Mhm.
always try to take it up to another level.
Yep.
I think that's how you kind of ended up with like the whole emo thing in like the mid 2000s
Yep.
there, right? It
Yep.
was
Yep.
lots of like Oxycontin and stuff like that was being used. Lots
Mhm.
of like um it was like I was talking about this with another guest that I had on, but that era, like I was growing up when emo and like that whole like subgenre
Mhm.
was
Was really
huge, right?
huge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
3 Days Grace and like uh Falling in Reverse, Escape the Fate and stuff like that,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm. Mhm.
it was like the more self-harm you can cause and the more trauma you can acquire, the more like popular you're going to be. And it was such a dangerous mentality to have.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, you go back to like gangster rap, for example, at least like with like say like the NWA and stuff like that, they were rapping about like real things, like the
Yeah.
shit that I like some of it maybe was a little exaggerated, obviously,
But they were rapping about their life and their neighborhoods
Yeah,
and
and like
the struggles that they go through. And
yeah,
yeah.
and like the emo scene, it was like a lot of those guys, like some of them obviously had like mental health issues, right? But they
Mhm.
also came up in like most of the time middle class suburban homes,
Yep.
and it was like my parents are getting divorced, so my life sucks. And I know I shouldn't be too heavy on that because trauma is all in perspective, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
all based on like what you're used to versus what the trauma is, right?
But I see what you mean, that it's kind of almost an excuse
Yeah.
to behave this way, for
Yeah.
them in a way.
Yeah, and it came to this. I feel almost like that attitude somehow like moved over into like the hip hop world after trap hit and stuff.
Mhm.
And then because you got these guys like maybe this is starting to pass now, but there were like these rappers like Lil Yachty and like this guy
Mhm.
named Lil Xan who was like
Yep.
face tattoos and stuff, but had this like edgy emo kind of vibe to them. And
Yep.
they're almost like the same thing, but it's like the look or the aesthetic moved genres,
Right.
and it's
Yeah.
almost like cycling through it. And I'm
Almost
just,
like the mindset is shifted to
yeah.
yeah.
So now
Yep.
I'm just wondering
Mhm.
if like, are we coming to an end of that where people are like, because there's a lot more awareness around mental health now, right?
Yes, there is. Yeah.
And like,
Which is good. Yeah.
do you think that has been a positive thing for musicians in general, like being able to have that stigma kind of removed and able to emphasize like talking about?
Yeah, being more encouraged to talk about the tough stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that it is moving in the right direction. And I think it's one of those things that's probably going to take a while to kind of to really develop, but
Mhm.
it's going in the right direction. Being able to talk about this stuff now is
Yeah.
huge. But yeah, I think that I think it's really important to recognize that. Of course, I think that the life of a creative in any genre, especially when you're really, really working toward your passion and your love for something in a society that doesn't necessarily r-
Incentivize it.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, that it's creatives are going to have issues
Yeah.
because they're generally not really in society. They're existing within society, but
They're the ones who see it as fucked up as it is before anyone else.
absolutely, and also that there's moments in their lives where they zone out from society,
Yeah.
so that where they're immersed in their art. And I don't think there's a lot of people in regular life that have that zone out.
Yeah.
Maybe their zone out is watching TV or something like
Yeah.
that or whatever, but that's not really a zone out.
You're talking about like withdrawing from society and just diving
Diving
headfirst into your
headfirst
art.
into an idea you have, and you're going to develop it. You turn your cell phone off. You no distractions. And then 4 hours fly by, and you get a whole bunch of cool stuff done
Yeah.
because you're in the zone. But in relation to mental health, that it's a benefit and a curse because you can get into a zone, you're actually helping yourself because you're able to detach yourself from the bombardment of life,
Mhm.
social life, but at the same time, because you're conflicted with having to pay your bills and live, and all that kind of stuff, but then also loving what you do. There's this battle between, having to make enough money to pay the bills and everything, and still being and allowing yourself to still be able to have enough time to do your creative stuff. And so there's that battle alone can cause issues, mental health issues, just trying to balance that. Um, and there's no right or wrong way necessarily. I would have to be applied to each person, but yeah, that's a toughie. I think that in some cases, uh, creatives can be more sensitive to that, and in some cases they can be less sensitive to it because they're comfortable with the amount that they make and the amount of time that they can spend on their creative stuff, and that balance is good for them. Um, or in some cases it won't be, but I found that throughout life, having to get those jobs doing sound or whatever, where you'd make 26 bucks an hour, for a good long, and long hours, like 15-hour days.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you make a big chunk of money, and then you've got a couple of weeks you can spend on
It
your
is
on your creative stuff.
yeah, because on like
Um,
people with that kind of mindset as like creators, like I would consider myself one, not by any means very like one who's um delved very much into any one particular mode of creativity, but like I always find myself in these like states where like if I want to do something with myself, whether it be how I choose to like alter my physical routine. Like I love understanding how I can like change how my body is and like how I can move and things like that. I'm always
mhm,
fascinated with like physical forms of art like dance and things like that.
mhm. And you're
Especially
a
like
you're a director too, or a AD,
yeah,
so I mean
yeah.
that's another huge creative thing.
My creativity has
Yeah,
definitely been
yeah.
stimulated a lot through like handling personal situations with people.
Mhm, mhm,
But like there's something about like I find this switch to go from work into personal is much harder for us to switch on and off. Like it's like if you're working, like that's why film works for us a lot is because if I'm gonna go to work, that's my day. I'm not
mhm.
doing things after or before work.
Yeah,
It's a work day,
me
right?
too,
Yeah.
me too.
And
Yeah.
then when you have time off, you don't want to have to think about I got to go to work on Monday
Mhm,
and like plan this whole like getting your life in order and doing your creative stuff before the Monday
mhm,
comes up. It's like
mhm.
now I'm done this. I'm done working for a bit. I'm gonna take 2 weeks, a
Switch
month.
the channel and then
Yeah,
focus entirely on something else
yeah,
for a
yeah,
long period of time. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
It was the hardest thing to acclimate to when I first got into film because my whole routine would develop around working, and then on my days off it would be recuperating from sleep. And then when you finally finish that job after doing like a 6-month run,
Mhm.
it's like okay, now I have to pick everything back up again and start moving. But once you find a hobby again and you get back into your things, like
Then you're
it's
back at work, or you're trying to remember where you left off,
yeah,
before you started that big job,
yeah,
or something like
exactly.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I got back into mixed martial arts and stuff earlier this year, and I hadn't been in combat sports for like over 10 years, but like just getting back to it and actually taking the initiative to understand that I'm not working for a while, so I'm going to actually do something that I want to do and stick with it for a bit.
Yep. Yep.
And it's so much easier when you don't have that anxiety of like I have to go back on Monday.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know?
Totally.
Mhm.
Totally. And yeah, and I find the same thing when on the weekends I'm just recuperating.
Yeah.
I'm just-
Yeah.
I might do a little bit of music, but I definitely do not do like work a 16-hour day and then come home and start writing beats. I mean, my mind is such in a
Yeah.
different spot.
You do a lot of sorry to kind of take this on another
Oh
tangent,
no,
but
go for it.
you do a lot of music production digitally too.
Mhm.
Do you must take an interest in hip hop music then?
I love hip hop.
Yeah.
I love trip hop, acid jazz. I mean, I'm again with genres.
Yeah.
Pretty much every genre, there's something I like.
Yeah.
Um,
What about hip hop though? Like, what do you think you've learned more out of that genre that's like kind of helped to build your musical identity?
well, I mean, my love of hip hop started with like Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul,
Nice.
CL Smooth,
Rakim?
Rakim.
Cool.
Though so early on,
Yeah.
it seemed that a lot of the hip hop was a lot more positive, or a
Mhm.
lot more, a little bit less like it is now, I suppose.
Like
And
gangster rap, right?
but I always loved how what got it for me, and that is kind of why I bought my first sampler was the the cool little horn parts and the things
Yeah.
that you could sample out and then add to your beat, and then kind of start to use them to shape a song, right?
When there's a good track, like a beat
Mhm.
with a pitch shifted brass section on it,
Yeah,
like Rakim's Guess Who's Back?
absolutely.
Holy shit, man.
It's
Like it
great. It's
just it
huge.
hits.
It
Yeah.
hits, man. Absolutely. But it's also the producer putting those things together,
Yeah.
right? And knowing that they'll go together.
Mhm.
Um, Now I've gotten to the point now where I very rarely sample off records anymore, and I nothing that I release has any samples from records on them, just to avoid the copyright thing. But if I uh, have, let's say, a sample that is turning out to be a key point in a song, then I'll bring my friends together, and we'll re-record it. And
Nice.
so we'll and we may change a few notes and change the tempo a little bit and this and that.
Make it your own.
Now it is inspired from that sample,
Mhm.
but it's been replayed and then readapted. So that is a good way to avoid the copyright issue.
Yeah.
Now, if that for some reason if that song started selling a million copies, then you'd probably still have a little lawsuit on your hand that that was derived from this and that. But it'd have to do that for it to be a problem, and then you'd already be rolling in cash anyway. So you'd be able to pay off the lawyer or whatever,
Yeah.
and or give them a couple of points on the
Yeah, or you just hire Rick Rubin to make the album. and
exactly
you'd be
exactly
fucking
basically.
set. Yeah.
But so that's kind of my approach now is that I love making stuff sound like it was sampled off of a record. I'll sometimes even put record scratch on the like over top of the sample that I recorded with my friends to make it sound like it's
Oh, that's cool. That's smart.
so it
Yeah,
sounds like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
been sampled off a record, but so it gives it that vibe, and it might be very subtle, but people will still pick it up. Oh, you
Yeah.
sampled that off a record? Yeah, no, I didn't actually, but I wanted to make it have that
Yeah.
mojo. I
My
wanted to have that
intention
vibe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The intention was to make it sound like it was sampled.
absolutely,
It's a
yeah.
trick question. Yeah.
But that's part of the era that I really was soaking that kind of music up, like, even Portishead or Massive Attack and the trip hop guys,
Oh,
that
yeah.
kind of stuff is similar, where they'd have like Portishead used to make acetate records out of samples of their own band. So when they're doing live shows, they can be scratching her voice or scratching uh, Adrian Altley's guitar stuff, or so a lot of the
Cool.
stuff. So they'd be printing these acetates that would dissolve after like 20 plays because
Yeah.
they're acetate, but they would use those for their live shows, so that when the guy's up there doing wak, waka, waka,
Yeah.
wah, and it's her voice, but
Cool.
so but
So
that's what
cool.
I want to get to is to take some of the samples that I have and then press some vinyl with
Yeah.
with my samples on them, and that way I can scratch them in and also use them for shows or use them for recording.
Yeah, that's fucking awesome. That's really cool.
But again, nowadays it's like $120 to get one acetate,
Hmm.
and then you almost want to do like a little mini run of scratch records
Yeah.
and then maybe sell some too. But yeah, I just that I love a lot of times. My songs will start with a beat that I've either made or a beat that I've sampled my buddy playing drums and I've maybe manipulated a bit. Or the song will start with some kind of a hook, a sample,
Yeah.
some 2-bar, 4-bar kind of little riff that goes, and then it just takes off from there, And then I'm like, oh, let's add a tambourine. Let's get my buddy to play some bass stuff on there. Oh, and then the ideas start to flow, and then it's the risk is to try not to put too much on it.
Yeah.
Like to have some space,
Yeah.
but make sure all the parts are there, right? But anyway, yeah, I mean that's almost my favorite thing to do is to sit down in front of the studio and just kind of write with other musicians. Is collaborating is one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really ultimate zone moment, especially if both musicians are in that zone and it's a
You guys all
magical
get
space.
on the
Yeah.
same level.
Yeah, you feel like you're on a magic carpet floating around. It's awesome.
So cool, man. Fucking A. I'm actually really enjoying your take on like what these different genres have that like do for you and stuff like that. And like sorry, I just had to shift that a little bit. I know I've mentioned it a few times already through this podcast, but like I'm really interested on your take on like the whole like metal genre of things. Like, cause like you strike me as a guy who's very musically like intelligent and like very well read. You obviously have a vast knowledge of theory and like the hardware, and I find it's hard to meet people outside of it's hard for a guy like me who doesn't necessarily associate entirely within like the music realm of like like I don't go play gigs out here and stuff. I'm not familiar with a lot of the local musicians and stuff, but
Mhm.
as like as being able to get around someone like this, it's I've always wanted to be able to like pick your brain sort of thing, I guess.
Oh yeah, no,
So
I love that. I love sharing my experiences and stuff like that.
yeah, so like,
Yeah.
have you had any good experiences in that genre area, like with the heavier stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. When I was in Kamloops, uh, for extra money, I started doing live shows and mixing live shows. And I started, I've mixed at the Blue Grotto nightclub there for probably 7 years when Doug couldn't do it. And then I started buying some equipment and doing live sound stuff. And I ended up doing a lot of metal and punk shows.
There's a lot of that
For a
in
lot of
Kamloops.
yeah
Kinda
through
strange.
through like the late 2000s and into the out to 2013, something like that. There was like Pogue Mahones and
Yeah.
there was a Rock and Firker, and they'd all have shows, and because those places didn't really have
Yeah.
a full setup, you'd have to bring in a mixing board and all that kind of stuff. But there was a lot of really great local bands. Again, even I mean, it's I find that music has an awesome energy and impact. It can be a bit relentless
Yeah.
after a while.
Yeah.
For me, like so, there was a period there where I'd actually be literally bringing earplugs and stuff like that because guys would just crank their amps and have full
It-
Marshall stacks on stage, and there was nothing I could really do about it.
Yeah, people could be
Um,
pretty aggressive with it.
Yeah,
Like, that's
well,
kind of the
they
vibe of the
they
music, right?
put
But-
everything to 10.
Yeah.
And this is how we do it, and you're in a tiny pub, but no, and a lot of really good local bands, like man, there's I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
I think there was one called Fenrir's Thirst. That was
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
local metal band out there. For
Absolutely, and there's a number. They seem to change so quickly. Like
Yeah.
they last for a couple of years and then they got a different
A
name.
while. Yeah.
But
Well,
a
they're
lot of the
also-
same players,
Yeah,
right?
they're also aggressive. Like they're like punk guys with muscles, so like they just try to fucking
yeah.
fight each other all the time. Yeah. Yeah.
Just like
Um,
relentless, right?
yeah.
But no, I do have good experiences, and I love Macedon.
Nice.
I love there's Gojira.
But you're nice. That's a good class. Those guys
But
are
I you generally
awesome.
like the metal bands where the
They're-
guys do sing. They do some
Yeah.
singing and then they do some growls.
Yeah, I'm the
But
same
they
way.
have some sing stuff because I gotta have that. I mean, if it's just growl all the way through, it's like
Yeah, there's very
it
few that
should
do
be an
it well.
impact thing. It should be like for impact.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know they're not. Well, actually, let's use Killswitch Engage as an example, right?
Mm-hmm,
Like
mm-hmm.
they had that guy, what was his name, Howard Jones or something like that. He was just he's a classically trained jazz singer, right? And gets into this melodic, technical death metal band,
Mm-hmm.
and like you'd think it's get like their prior guy was a lot of screaming and stuff, and like he was okay at singing, but then when he came onto the scene with that band, like have you heard their cover of Holy Diver?
I may have.
Okay,
I
so
should double check that.
he's
Yeah.
got this super rich voice, like just beautiful. Like you could see the guy singing in like anything from like gospel to R&B.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden he's got these pipes that come out and he can just scream.
Right.
And they have a really good way of like using the actual singing part as like almost a relief and adding tension with the screaming and growls.
Yep.
And that's kind of what I've appreciated about those vocals.
Totally.
But there are definitely bands out there like I don't know, like insert black metal band name here. The guys who
Pretty
just
much.
like just blast constantly, and
It's just a relentless wall of sound,
Yeah.
and it's so hard to pick out what the heck's going on. And it's every to me, bands like that are just everyone's just stepping on each other.
Yeah.
Like no one's leaving room for anyone else. That's a bad. I think that's a bad thing in any music. There has to be tension and release, as you were just said. You know, with the different vocal, and then there has to be some dynamics. You know, that's again why I like Macedon and Gojira. They have halftime sections in songs, and then they'll double time the ending or whatever. Like they'll have a spot
structure
that chills out a bit.
Yeah.
And then maybe there's a cool guitar solo, and then they ramp it up, and
Yeah.
But there's got to be some dynamics. There's got to be some kind of give and take.
Yeah. Because even if you are if you could be a world-class guitarist or drummer for sure, and you can play 300 BPM or whatever.
Yeah,
Some
and
guys,
just go.
Yeah, going nuts. It's like great. That's super talented, sure, but you can't hear it really.
Well, and it doesn't make any sense. Like everyone's just stepping on each other, and it's not being properly utilized. In my, I mean, it's like there's 4 amazing artists on there, but then they just play as much as possible, so that there's no room for anything else.
I
right?
think that's kind of where I'm starting to feel like my own age starting to kick in about like how I talk about that, because I used to identify a lot as like I'm a metalhead or whatever, right? But I'm listening to the stuff the kids are listening to nowadays, and it's just not. It's not what it. To me, it's not what the genre is about. Like they've taken the idea of being aggressive and loud, and just decided to make that the entire thing instead of like having these points in the songs where it's like it's always been like a high octane type of music. But then there's like a build up, and then there's like these relief parts, and there can be like, I guess that's why there's like why I found out I gravitate more towards like the melodic death metal side of things, because they have the melody, they have that structure to it.
Totally.
They're conscious of,
and the melody is the most important thing for that period of time.
Yeah.
And instead of everything just being mushed together.
I feel like the ones nowadays, like it's hard for me. I've been trying to listen to a lot of them because I'm like, come on, don't be that guy. Don't be the music of my day. Someone says, I don't want to be that guy. So I'll put on stuff like I've heard of a couple different bands. Like there's this one that's blowing up. I think they're called Lorna Shore, and like they're huge right now. People fucking love them. And I listen to their music, and it's just I can't understand a single thing the guy's saying. And I understand that like the screaming is talented, sure, and he can get really, really deep, and then he can do these really high pitched, like squealy, crazy shit. But like, give me a bridge. I don't
give me a context to like, that bugged me too. Is that I can't understand what they're saying.
I don't need 5 minutes of blast beats. I want give me an intro of some sort that like actually feels like there's structure to this thing.
Totally.
It's been causing me a bit of a midlife crisis. I'm not gonna lie.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Let the kids get over it.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. It'll come up soon enough,
You
you know?
can't tell them anything, you know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Fuck. If I only knew. If I only
Oh
fucking knew growing up,
gosh.
man. Yeah, that's
But I think that that actually almost is every generation, I think, really. I mean,
yeah, it's true.
I even there's because yeah, I think that a lot of younger folks feel like they're just like, wow, what the heck am I? You know, like going to school and and life seems so like unconcrete that there's all this anxiety that's pent up, and you just got to get it out. And when you're younger, I mean, you can listen to that stuff for 4 hours, and it's not a big deal. You know,
Yeah.
it's I think as you get older and you grow and you start to redefine your tastes a bit and everything, then you start to look for things that are a little bit more, you know, still having that energy, but then obviously life isn't just all intense.
Yeah.
Like you've got to have the push and pull of that, and that's what really makes a great song. It doesn't even matter what genre it is. I mean,
Yeah.
you got to have tension and release. You got to have dynamics. You got to have, you know, structure isn't even as important as those.
No,
I mean, there's some
yeah.
songs that go with the same key all the way through and a cool beat, but because of what is put over top of it, it shapes the song,
Yeah.
you
And like
know? Um,
if it is like the same beat and stuff, there are other elements added that make it feel almost transic or something, right? And
Absolutely,
not just
and they contribute with what the bad tracks that are
yeah.
there to the greatest effect, you
Yeah.
know, without it just being mushed all over, you know, everything just kind of stepping on each other, right?
Like
Yeah, yeah.
there's guys playing like 8-string guitars in like a drop G tuning now, and it's like I can't. Your body can't even register that low of a frequency.
No,
It
and
just
you can
sounds
see the
like
string is like going like this,
yeah,
you know,
it's just like low fuzz. It's
like,
like
and why do you need a bass player now? You know,
yeah.
basically.
Well, now the bass player's got like a literal power cable
Yeah,
as like
yeah.
his top string on the guitar. Just like just nuts. Yeah, that kind of stuff has blown me away. You know, I try not to talk too much, but
But
that's
it
just
in a way it is because these guys are trying something different and
yeah.
they're trying to be
I
different.
guess
I
so.
mean,
It's kind of like I guess they're like the fusion jazz of metal music in a
I guess,
sense,
you know,
right?
because how else are you people going to know you or
Yeah.
discover you if oh that guy's playing an 8-string guitar, you know?
And the only guys I know who really like this kind of music are people who understand music more than me, who really go deep into like the metal world. So I guess
Right, and
it's
they know this, and they even know the name of the brand
oh
of the
yeah,
guitar, and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you know, and they're all this drop D, drop C, drop
yeah.
whatever. I'm not used to that in the bands that I play with. We're all concert pitch.
The drop tunings
Uh,
are like super fun to play just because you for a full power chord now you just got to bar your finger and like
yep,
you can get nice and heavy with it. Like I don't know, you listen to Lamb of God. Have you ever heard of
yeah,
them?
yep,
So
yep, yep, yep.
probably one of the only bands that like there's he doesn't really sing much, but he's like so very like clear and enunciated with his screaming
Mhm,
methods that like you
mhm.
can still understand the lyrics, but
Yep.
they play in a drop D or Children of Bodom was a drop C. And the first time I went down to that tuning and I hit a palm muted open string, I was just like, whoa, like that's a
It's
thump.
chunky,
Yeah,
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 yeah, like it has, and you can understand why that would be effective in that genre, just because of how much impact that
yeah,
has.
yeah.
Uh, as a sound engineer, that becomes a real problem for mixing live or
Oh, I
recording,
bet. Yeah,
because now you've got to try and find to carve out a little spot for your guitarist, which is basically getting into the
yeah.
bass range,
Noise gates won't
and
work
then
here.
the
Yeah,
bass guy's got to like because if they started playing the same note, you're going to get this giant bump.
yeah.
You're going to get all these weird resonances and stuff like that. So now the bass player's got to remodulate everything so he's not hitting that note and make sure that it fits. You
So
know, and
it's technically difficult to record too.
yeah, because you're
Okay.
dealing with all these low frequencies. Then you
Yeah.
got the kick drum.
Mm.
And the kick
Oh,
drums, so now
yeah.
you got
Okay.
these 3 and bass frequencies that now you've got to try to carve out a little spot for each of them.
I never
And
thought of that
because
before.
otherwise
That's
bass will just get mushy.
wow.
It'll just get all mushed.
Well, yeah,
Like
you know,
like
it's just bass mush. Look at
yeah,
all this
yeah.
bass mush.
Like
Well,
a lot of the times I'd put the kick drum when I'm doing live stuff, I'd tune the kick drum either higher or lower, so I would carve out all the really low end stuff out of the kick and make it more punchy, and then give the bass guitar all that low stuff. Yeah.
we're coming into our last. Oh, we're at the last 10 seconds already. But I wanted to just give you one more question, and it is for anyone else who is trying to feel happy and like fulfilled and wants to live a life of music and keep that attitude,
Hmm.
what's the best piece of advice you can give anyone in a nutshell on like just sticking with it and not getting too down when like, it might seem tough?
Well, you nailed one of them. Actually, three of them, I think. Sticking with it, and even scheduling on Sunday afternoon for 3 hours. I'm going to paint, or I'm going to write poetry, or I'm going to. And even if you feel totally stumped and you have no ideas, just do it. That's one thing. Another thing is collaborating. Collaborating is a great way to get yourself out of a writer's block or anything like that. Because you can offer something that's maybe partially done or an idea or a drum beat or something like that to somebody, and they'll have a whole slew of ideas for it. Whereas you're like, I don't know where to go with this. And then you collaborate with them, and then the song can go somewhere. Um, and then also just believing in your passion for uh, it's so tough because being a creative, you're under this guise of being judged
Mm-hmm.
by everyone and by everyone's tastes. It's good to try to realize that this is just their opinion. I love what I'm doing. I'm passionate about painting. I'm passionate about music. I'm passionate about acting or whatever, any creative form, and I'm going to keep doing it. I'm not going to let them discourage me from that.
So what you're saying is fuck the noise.
Yeah, pretty much.
Cool.
And if you have writer's block, find people that you respect, that you collaborate with.
Awesome.
Yeah, and play with people that are better than you.
Yeah. Oh fuck, that's the best. That's the
Play
best
with
part,
people
yeah.
that are better than you and learn from them and soak it up and use your ears and yeah.
Thank you, Graham.
Frickin' A, buddy. This has
Appreciate
been
it.
great. This has been great.
Why don't you look into this camera here and just throw out your handles, your band name, whatever you wanna advertise or whatever.
Cool. I'm Graham Howe. I perform as Howe Sound in a trip hop, acid jazz kind of breakbeat group. I've got if you follow me, Howe Sound Official on Instagram, and then my link tree is Howe Sound Music. But yeah, got some shows coming up in spring, I think, and I'll certainly be putting them out there. I'd love for you guys to come and video the
I
show
would love
again.
to do
Yeah,
that,
that'd be
yeah.
awesome. But yeah, and looking forward to get back to film work.
Sick.
After
Awesome.
this long strike.
Thank you, Graham. Thanks again for listening, everybody, or
Cheers.
watching if you tuned in the YouTube channel. Be sure to like and subscribe. We'll be back again with more delicious content to stimulate your attention deficit. My name's Adam Aubrey. Have a good day. Peace. Cool. Awesome.
Excellent.
That was wicked.